honestly, pretty powerful way to get a US green card. It's designed for skilled professionals whose work is considered super important to the United States. We're going to get into what it is, exactly how it's judged, and what it really takes to build a case that wins. Okay, so let's just jump right in. A US green card without a job offer? I mean, that sounds almost too good to be true, right? The idea that you can petition for yourself without needing a company to sponsor you? But it is absolutely a real thing. It's called the EB-2 National Interest Waiver, or NIW for short. It's basically an exception to the rule, and it puts all the power right in your hands. So to really get our heads around this, here's the game plan. First, we'll cover the basics of what the NIW is. Then, and this is the juicy part, we're going to peek behind the curtain at how these cases are actually reviewed. After that, we'll dissect the legal test every single petition has to pass, share some real-world advice on building your case, and then wrap it all up. All right, Section 1. So, what exactly is this thing? What makes the national interest waiver so different from the kind of green card process most people have heard of? You know, the one where your boss sponsors you. Let's get right to it. Here's the key. Normally, a U.S. company has to go through this whole big process called labor certification. They have to prove to the government that they couldn't find a qualified American for the job. It takes forever. The NIW basically lets you say, look, what I do is so important for the U.S. that it's in the country's best interest to just waive that whole requirement and let me apply for myself. It's a huge shortcut. Now, for what I think is the most eye-opening part of all this. What really happens after you spend months, maybe even a year, putting your heart and soul into this petition and you mail it off? Well, we've got some incredibly honest insights from a former USCIS officer, someone who did this job for 13 years, and what she has to say, it changes everything. Just let that number sink in for a minute. 15 to 20 cases a day. You might spend hundreds of hours on your file, but the person deciding your entire future is looking at a huge stack of these things every single day. The pressure is just immense. The former officer even talked about a colleague who could get through that many, which she said was amazing but totally unsustainable. And if you do the math, it's kind of shocking. In a 9-hour day, 20 files means you're getting what? Maybe 20 minutes of attention? 20 minutes for your entire professional life story. This one fact alone should completely change how you think about putting your case together. It's not about volume, it's about clarity. So, because they're in such a massive hurry, you can bet they are not reading every single word. They are absolutely skimming. That 25-page cover letter you wrote, they're glazing over it. All the vague praise, what the officer called puffery, it just gets ignored. They're hunting for cold, hard facts that are easy to find and connect directly to the law. And here's the really sobering part. The person you get matters a lot. The former officer told this story about an adjudicator who was notorious for denying almost everything. She said you could just tell by the tone of the denial that it was him. It's a stark reminder that even if you have a perfect case, it can still come down to the luck of the draw and whose desk it lands on. Okay, so you know the pressure they're under, and you know it can be subjective. So how on earth do you build a case that can survive that kind of review? Well, you have to know the exact rules of the game. And that brings us to what's called the Donisar test. So back in 2016, a huge legal decision came down called Matter of Donisar, and it completely changed the game. It got rid of an old, confusing standard and replaced it with a much clearer 3-part test. Every single NIW petition today is judged against this framework. This is the playbook. These are the 3 pillars of your case. You can't just be strong on 1 or 2 of them. You have to prove all 3. And you have to prove them by what's called a preponderance of the evidence, which is just a fancy way of saying you have to show that it's more likely than not that what you're saying is true. So let's break them down one by one. First up, you have to prove that what you plan to do has both substantial merit and national importance. Merit is pretty broad. It could be science, business, art, you name it. And a key thing here, it doesn't have to make money right away. Pure research that just advances what we know as a species, that counts. National importance is about the potential impact. Think bigger picture. For instance, a small business in a town that needs jobs could be nationally important because it helps the U.S. economy. Okay, prong 2. This one is all about you. It's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You have to prove that you are the person who can actually pull it off. They'll look at your old background, your degrees, your skills, your track record, but they're also going to look at your future plan. Do you have a business model? Have you made any progress? Is anyone else, like investors or customers, showing interest? You have to show you're not just a dreamer. And finally, the third prong. This one is a balancing act. You have to convince them that, on balance, it is better for the United States to just waive the whole job offer process for you. This part is huge because it acknowledges that, yeah, there might be other qualified U.S. workers out there, but your specific contributions are so valuable or so urgent that it makes sense for the nation to just let you in and get to work. Okay, so we know the crazy time pressure and we know the three legal tests, but how do you actually translate that into a petition that an officer can approve in 20 minutes? This is where we get into some super practical, no-nonsense advice straight from the former adjudicator. Let's start with the cover letter. The officer's advice was simple. Stop writing long ones. They hate them. Keep it short, direct, and under 10 pages, max. She said her dream cover letter would be like a table of contents in a magazine, just a quick one-sentence teaser for each piece of evidence. Its job is to be a roadmap for the officer, not a novel. Next, recommendation letters. They're super important, but only if they're done right. An officer knows your friends are going to say you're great. A letter that just says she's a brilliant researcher is basically useless. A great letter tells a story. It gives context. It explains the real-world impact of something on your resume. It connects the dots for the officer. Now, for any entrepreneurs out there, your business plan is huge. And the officer confirmed, yes, they actually read them. They get that it's about the future, but they are looking for one thing, a connection to reality. Are your financial projections just made up? Do you have a real plan to find customers? Your business plan has to prove that your idea is grounded and actually viable. So when you put all of this together, what do you get? Well, the NIW is this incredible opportunity, but it's a tricky maze. You have to understand the law, be super strategic with your evidence, and you have to always be thinking about that overworked officer on the other side. But the good news is, it's a maze that you absolutely can navigate successfully. So, as we wrap up, let's just hammer home the main takeaways. The NIW is a direct path, but it's definitely not an easy one. With officers spending just minutes on your file, your organization and your clarity are everything. You absolutely have to nail all three parts of the Denosser test. And every single piece of paper in that file, from the cover letter to your business plan, has to be strategic and has to earn its place. Ultimately, it all boils down to this one question. Your entire petition is an answer to this. It isn't just about listing your achievements, it's about weaving them together into a powerful story that proves you are uniquely important to the future of the United States. And telling that story the right way, well, that's the whole challenge. Look, after hearing all of this, if you're thinking this path might be for you, but you realize just how complex it is, getting some expert help to craft that story can make all the difference. One resource you might consider is Farrukh Consultancy. For any questions or support, you can reach out and contact Farrukh. Thank you so much for